Ji. Welcome to Love Heals Cancer and Sononco.io. This is a cancer healing journey talk where we invite speakers who have gone through cancer, maybe as a patient, caregiver, or a survivor, and they inspire others going through a similar journey. This not only helps them with the treatment, but also motivates and inspires them when they listen to others' journeys. So, thank you so much for giving out your time for this. It is an honor to have you with us. So, Ravindra ji, can you please first introduce yourself and then talk about your wife's journey through cancer?
Yeah. Thanks, Manavi. This was in 2005, September. My wife had finished her home chores and gone for aerobics classes. She came back a little early that day. She was feeling some kind of a tiredness, and she had a glass of juice and she was drinking. And she started getting some kind of hallucination. Somebody is knocking the door. The window is not open. The window is open, though it was closed. These were the symptoms, and it was very, very minor. And she felt somewhat. She tried to reach me. I was in a Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, a workshop those 2 days. I had at least some 10 calls from my in-laws and from my wife, but my phone was silent because I was doing some activity. During the lunchtime, when I saw my phone, I had so many calls. I called my wife. She said, "I'm feeling somewhat. I'm not able to explain. Come home immediately." Fortunately, I was close by. I went. She didn't have any temperature per se. She didn't have any kind of fever, cold, cough, anything like that. And she was telling me it's kind of an indigestion. So I took her to a nearby clinic. He checked BP, temperature, all that. Everything was normal. He just gave a paracetamol and sent her back. Couple of days later, the same thing she started saying. She started saying, the door is open, though it was closed. The windows are open, though it was closed. I felt this something abnormal because she's never behaved that way. I called my mother-in-law and told, "Can you be at home because I'll be going to office?" She came home that evening. She called me, my mother-in-law, telling that Bharti has fainted. My wife's name is Bharti. I came home. She was just as if she's sleeping. We are trying to wake her up. She's responding, but she's not waking up. We thought maybe it's one-off case. I called up my family doctor. He said, "Come tomorrow." After half an hour, the same thing happened again. Then we came to know there is something abnormally wrong. I took her to my family physician. He said, "Why don't you get a CT scan, brain CT scan?" I laughed at him, telling that for all this, why do we need a CT scan for brain? There's nothing to do with psychiatry or anything. But I ignored that. A few days later, the same thing happened. She blacked out completely. She was sitting on the sofa. She just lied down. And she gets up and says it was completely dark. This was the initial symptoms. And then I took her to a retired army colonel who was a doctor in psychiatry. I took her to him, and he told we have to give her shock treatment. Looks like there's some psychiatric issue. I was not for it. A shock treatment to my wife. She was 34 years old. A shock treatment for my wife, I couldn't take it. So I told my in-laws had come with me. I told my in-laws, no, I'm not for it. Shock treatment is not at least I don't prefer that kind of a route treatment to her. I went to a different doctor. They also told that we need to do a scan. They did a scan. They did a scan, and no, by that time it was almost a month's time, 1.5 months time. We could not, the doctors and we could not diagnose what exactly is the problem. 1.5 months passed by. It was full of tense situation at home. I had taken long leave to my office also. After 1.5 months, for the first time, we had taken to a doctor. Uh, a doctor was in Indian Institute of Science. He was the chief medical officer. He's a person who practices the art of visualization therapy. In the sense, we deeply visualize something, and that's going to happen. Kind. For example, a stroked patient, if he or she starts continuously visualizing moving his or her fingers, uh, they slowly get that the brain sends signals to the whatever the body organ, and that starts responding. He was doing that, and we just came out of the clinic. She had the first convulsion. When she had the convulsion, I called the ambulance. We rushed her to Malia Apollo Hospital, 15 kilometers from the place where I was. And for the first time, she was done a MRI and a CT scan. They found out there is a lump in the brain, right side of the brain. Uh, there were two sets of doctors who were attending to her. One was the HOD, the other person was a US returned and had some say in the organization. Unfortunately, they had a conflict of opinion, medical opinion. One doctor said it's a venous infarct. It is not a tumor. The other doctors told it is a tumor. So they could not, they were not cohesive. They did not come to a conclusion what exactly it is. Finally, she was discharged after 3 days from the hospital. It was concluded it's a venous infarct. It was a bulge in the brain, whatever the part of the brain was just a bulge, and it'll subside. She was given oral medication. They didn't intervene or operate on it. We came back home. I thought everything is back to normal. After a few days, she had a second convulsion, much stiffer, much longer duration when compared to the first one. Again, we rushed her to the hospital. The same set of doctors attended to her, and there was a conflict in those two doctors. I could not take that because for me, I was sensing something wrong, completely wrong, and I had to save my family and my wife. I ditched those set of doctors. I went to different set of doctors to different hospital. That is in Sagar Apollo Hospital. From Malia Apollo, I went to Sagar Apollo. That was close by to my home also. There was an efficient doctor. He told her to walk on a straight line, but she was not able to walk on a straight line. She's telling she's walking straight, but she's walking slant, some 10-20 degrees away. She was not able to walk straight. Doctor did one more set of MRI and CT scan, though I felt it was not required, but we had to respect their knowledge. They did the second set of scan and MRI with all required tests, and she was found malignant. She was still in the hospital. Her samples went to Nimhans, Bangalore, because those days, I think even now, Nimhans has to keep the statistics of all the cancer patients, especially related to skull and brain. The sample went to that lab. Uh, the doctor told me that it will take 3 days to do all this pathological test, etc. I couldn't wait for 3 days. I went to Nimhans to ask what is this, etc. By that time, they had found out on the second day it was highly malignant glioblastoma multiforme small cell variant, which was very rare in India in 2005, September, October. It was early 2006 itself. And to my shock, these doctors are so unfriendly. I'm not generalizing, but the doctors whom I met, they are so unfriendly and kind of inhuman, I would say. They treat a patient as if it's some kind of a headache or some kind of an injury. That's how they treat. That's how they're maybe made up mentally. Doctor told she's going to die in a week, as if we are killing a cockroach or a rodent. I couldn't take it, but anyway, I had to take it. And when I went to demands, the same answer came. When I asked him, what's the prognosis? How long will she live, etc.? Because you said it's highly malignant. Those doctors are so uh, with no patience or less patience. They started screaming and shouting when a patient attended. Uh, the uncertainty, the anxiety of saving my wife and my family, and I can't see the pain in my wife. Third thing is this humiliation and rude uh, behavior by this medical fraternity. Finally, the report came. Report told the same. My glioblastoma multiforme is small cell variant. But one doctor told, since it's small cell variant, it is easily curable. And since it's glioblastoma multiforme, it diffuses too fast. In the sense, the malignant cells grows beyond control. So it was a crossroad situation. She was treated for a week or so, very high doses of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Nothing, it was not of much help. By that time, it was February. By the time it all happened, on February 11th, sorry, March 10th, they operated on her, 2006, uh, giving up all other treatments because it didn't work. She was operated on March 10th. Uh, she came out of the operation theater. She was still in anesthesia, local anesthesia. She was kind of, she was in a situation like a trance situation, but she recognized me. She just raised her finger and gave me a thumbs up. I thought for the second time that everything will be back to normal, but that report was still killing me. That she'll die in a week's time. Uh, that was on March 10th. I went home for the first time and had a good sleep that day. By the time I had a 5-year-old son. My son is a 2000 born son. He was 5 years old in 2005. Maybe early six in 2006. The next morning, I got a call around 5 o'clock from the hospital, telling that wherever you are, leave all your work and rush back to the hospital. I went back. I came from a different. I'd gone to my home that day, my parents' home. I drove around 15 kilometers early morning, and I came that day. Her skull had blown up, or it had become like a football. It's a flesh football. Her eyes were swollen like tennis ball size. Her entire face was completely swollen, etc. And they gave me a form and told, today surgery, we have to do one more surgery. The same place where we had operated and closed, we have to open that part of the skull again. She was already, her head was shaved. She was looking so ugly. More than ugly, it was so heart-wrenching. A girl whom I uh, met 10 years back, loved and married, and who gave me everything in life. I couldn't see her in that. The doctor told, uh, we are going with 200% risk today. I had no choice. I just signed wherever they asked me to sign. By the time I had lost complete hope. But I didn't give up some hope left somewhere, some corner. I just sat for 2-3 hours in the same table without getting up, and finally doctor came and told operation successful second time. She was shifted to the ward maybe after 2 days or 3 days, neuro ICU. And from neuro ICU, she was back to the general regular ward. I noticed she was not able to lift her left hand. She was not able to wink her left eye, and her mouth and lips were drooping one side, all to the left side. She was able to hold the spoon in the right hand. She was not able to even hold the spoon in the left hand. I waited for the doctor. Doctor told, this is hemiplegia. The tumor was on the right side. The right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, and she's been half body vertically stroked. We call it as hemiplegia. I felt as if the sky had fallen on me, but I also felt sorry for the doctor, because this is not the way a patient's attendant should be informed. Later on, it was known through some other doctors that particular night of 10th March, she profusely bled in the brain after the surgery. And that is the reason for her skull to be swollen like a football. That's it. After around 10 days, she was discharged. Doctors told she will slowly recover from hemiplegia and she'll come back to normal. but they put a caveat telling that she'll not be completely normal any throughout her life. She'll be crippled one way or the other. The first takeaway from that is this medical fraternity was so hopeless for a attendant like me, that for a patient of 35-year-old. They had least empathy. She came back home. She was being treated for physiotherapy uh, for her left leg and left hand to improve. But she started slowly taking food. I didn't give up by that time. She was told to take chemotherapy for 6 months and radiotherapy also to the maximum number of doses a human being can take. I consulted a homeopathy physician. A day before her chemotherapy, she was tested for her hemoglobin, platelet count, and all that because it will significantly drop after chemotherapy. So that particular one day before we give her that dose of homeopathy, and her platelet count will come to a good level, and that will continue after the chemotherapy also for 1 or 2 days. So that way we kept her up and alive for 6 months to 7 months. In fact, the 6 doses became 7 doses. The radiotherapy also got overshot because she was not completely she not completely recovered. 7 months, 8 months passed, and I didn't stop. The physiotherapy went on. The homeopathy was going on. I heard through one of the Indian Institute of Science medical doctors telling that you give her phytocyanin, the blue part of the blue-green algae which is found in the seabed. EID Parry was the only company in India which manufactures that those days, and they export completely to Japan and US. They were not selling it in local market because a quarter kilo was 27,000 rupees. So they felt Indians may not afford for the patients. So I used to give her that. 1 spoon of this phytocyanin powder, the blue part of the blue-green algae, very minute powder. You keep it in the open air, it will just evaporate. So you have to just, in a closed container, you have to open it, put in honey and give it to her. This went on for a year. Along with that, somebody also told me, the same doctor, that give her raw chlorophyll, because chlorophyll, as we know, it is found in green leaves, and that rejuvenates the cells in the body. So this also went through. The physiotherapy was going on, chemotherapy, radiotherapy stopped. This almost went for 1.5 years. So the doctor who told me she'll die in a week, she was survived for 1.5 years. Whenever I go to a follow-up visit, the same doctor, he used to tell, your wife may not live more than a month. This was a standard answer. My learning from this is, whoever is attending to their um, cancer patients at their home, don't give up the fight. Because today what uh, medical system knows is they go by law of statistics. They go by average. If a person is of this age, this body ailment, this comorbidities, etc., you are grade 1, 2, 3, 4. That's, according to me, that's only a number given to that. But a 1 week person who was supposed to die lived for 2.5 years. In the last 6 months, she made progress. She was able to stand up on her own. She was able to slowly walk on the side of the wall with the support of the wall. I brought her to my home, me, my son, her. I quit my job. I thought this is more important to save my family than my career. I can always rebuild my career. I quit my job. I was a 24/7 male nurse for her. Um, I was taking care of her completely, giving her, right from giving her bath to cooking for her, taking care of the home and son. It went on for around 6 months. By that time, one day we had a ceremony at home. There was a function at home. The medical doctor came. He saw her from a little far. He told, when is the last you diagnosed her again? When is the last you had a medical consultation? I told her around 3 months back. He told, I suggest you immediately rush her to another checkup. The next day itself, I took her to the checkup. It was found that the tumor had grown from the right part of the skull to the front part of the skull. I asked him, when he told rush her to hospital, I asked him why. Because she Without knowing, she urinated herself as if nothing happened. She had lost the sense of urination. She's lost the sense of smell. She's lost the sense of talking to her son, who was 6 years, 7.5 years old by that time. And when my son used to come and hug her, she was as if she's a piece of wood. No emotions, nothing. She was just as a statue. So looking at all this, doctor told we rush her, and when uh, we rushed her to Fortis those days. Then he told, I think we can't do anything anymore now, because the frontal lobe is the one which covers the human emotions, sense, touch, all that. And she's lost because the cancer has completely swallowed her brain. You are lucky that at least she had survived for 2.5 years. After I asked what to do, doctor said, we can't intervene again. We can't do any surgery on her because it's not doable, because our right part of the brain is gone, our front part of the brain is gone. We don't recommend surgery. We don't recommend chemotherapy. We don't recommend radiotherapy. Nothing. Then I asked, what can I do? He said, start chanting Om Namo Narayan. I gave up. I told nothing can be done. I resorted to homas, pujas, havans, all that. Nothing helped. Finally, I'd gone to Kerala to find her astrology. I met her astrologer to speak about her, to know about her. He told nothing will happen. She's a survivor. She will fight her cancer, etc. You'll all be back tomorrow. I came back to Bangalore from Kerala in a late night bus. Morning, I came around 5 o'clock, slept. My brother-in-law called around 8 o'clock, telling that, please come home. I was around 6 kilometers away to my in-laws' home. When I went, she had passed away. That's it. She passed away after 2.5 years of battle. She was a fighter. What I would recommend that is, don't go by one set of advice. Always have a second opinion, because at least these allopathic doctors and surgeons, they know only to cut, poison, and burn. Cut is operation or surgery. Uh, Poison is chemotherapy. Burn is radiotherapy. They burn the cancer cells. They also burn the other good cells also. That's a side effect of it. So I would only request people who are undergoing such turmoil in their lives, don't give up. Think that he or she needs your service, love, and affection till their last moment. And you're being sent by God to serve that particular person. Maybe that person will take care of you in the next avatar or next Janma. This is my story. I'll stop here. I know I did a long monologue. If you have any questions, I'll answer, Manavi.
Yeah, so thank you so much for telling the journey in detail. And there's many things that we get to learn from every journey. It's just that I would like to ask that how the entire duration of her treatment and seeing her in that situation, how was that experience for you as a caregiver emotionally and mentally?
Yeah, it was very tough. I would say very tough is very understatement. There is not even a single night I slept continuously for 6 hours, um, because the anxiety of the doctor telling me she'll die next week. I would not call him a doctor. I'll call him a butcher. She'll die next week. This is the statement he passed around 9:30. He came from a dinner and he told she's going to die, as if people ask, shall we go for a party kind of a thing. So that left a. I will never forget that night. That those same steps I was standing and the doctor coming and telling along with wife and the son, so inhumanly. Uh, so so every night that was triggering in my mind. I used to get up in midnight. I used to. I don't get sleep after that. I used to take my car and go out long drive, and even if it's raining, I used to shout myself in the car and come. I was praying God that there is no God I didn't pray those days. There is no God which I didn't have some kind of a promises. We call hurricane in Canada. Let's get well soon, I do something. So I'd gone to hundreds of temples, nothing worked. So constant anxiety, what next is a big, big, big question mark. My son is a demanding son, highly playful son. At the age of 5.5 till 8, he didn't see his mother. I had to attend to him. I had to attend to my wife. I had to attend to her medicines. Uh, I had to attend to the doctors, the tests, the laboratories. It was a nightmare. I was working for IBM. I resigned, but IBM told, no, no, you stay back. I know if it's cancer, you are an ATM machine to the medical world. You're a living, moving ATM. So stay in the job, take a low profile job. So I compromise my career, the second part of it. One side, your personal health is going down, your mental health is going down, your corporate career has come to a standstill completely. You're growing negative, every aspect, emotionally, mentally, morally, physically, monetarily, every way you're going down. Of course, I was frustrated, I was highly anxious, I was depressed, all that happened. But what kept me going is I have to save her. I don't mind losing all my money. I don't mind losing everything, but I want to save her. But that never happened. So these emotions keep going through. Those days back, 2006, 7, 8, maybe the cancer treatment was not so very advanced, but at least now it is very, very well advanced, I guess. There is PET scan now. There is PET surgeries now, cyber surgeries now. So I would only request people should not give up hope.
Definitely, that's true. And the thought of, the thought that you will be able to cure the patient and there will be a day when they will be out of this keeps you going through the entire journey. So
True.
you also mentioned about homeopathic treatments in Ayurvedic. So how was the experience with taking those treatments side by side?
Yeah, I was never a. I had great respect for homeopathy and Ayurveda. Uh, After my wife's incident, I lost all the respect for allopathy now and the allopathy system itself. So the first person I used to go to is Dr. Subbarao, who was a retired chief medical officer at Indian Institute of Science. Uh, he used to come and treat her every day except Sundays for the visualization therapy, and we used to see a stroked hand. She used to move her fingers. She used to fold slowly and release her fingers, the wrist. That was not possible through uh, as per my surgeon. So that is one alternative therapy. The homeopathy helped a lot because her blood level counts, the platelet count, hemoglobin, all this used to significantly drop after chemotherapy. We used to do a one day before we used to do that check. It was all low. We used to administer the chemotherapy, uh, and then the same day we used to give her homeopathy. And we used to see in 24 hours, her platelet count, her hemoglobin, everything shoots up uh, vertically. Uh, so this is one thing I did. The second thing is the same Dr. Subbarao told me that give her phytocyanin. The highest potent food on earth is what it's perceived to be, because that's the first living being, it seems. So oldest, something which has a life, which is the oldest on earth, a blue-green algae. I gave that to her. I gave chlorophyll. I gave, and I gave her a more tablet, which is anybody can take that. Even I used to take that. Um, it's also made up of blue-green, the green algae basically. So these helped her a lot. And somewhere in between around 2007, she used to get very, very bad dreams. And it is not one day, every day she was getting those bad dreams. Maybe that's how the brain cancer works, maybe. So I found out a doctor somewhere far away in Bangalore. He makes homeopathy medicine out of flower petals. These flower petals, they have some unique characteristics. It diminishes or erases your bad dreams. So I used to go once in a week. I used to go show her all her medical records and take treatments. And that generous doctor, he doesn't charge. He does it. He's a ITI employee, Indian Telephone Industries employee, retired employee. He does it as a hobby. And anytime you go to his house, there'll be at least 50 people, and there is no uh, booking system, appointment system. You have to go stand in the queue, and he sees each patient in depth. So if I go once to him, half day is gone. Driving to the end of Bangalore and coming back, another half day. So these systems, Ayurveda, allopathy, this visualization therapy, this rich nutrients like phytocyanin, chlorophyll, chlorella. It's called chlorella. The one, another alternative plant-based treatment. These I gave to her. I felt, uh, except her brain cancer, she was she was fine.
Yeah,
She
so
didn't
it's
have diabetes, she didn't have BP, she didn't have anything else except the main issue. Of course, the main issue was everything to do.
yeah, true. So you mean that all those side treatments helped her in some or the other way in keeping her fit and you know to take away the side effects that she was having.
Yes, very much, very much.
Okay, that's good. So lastly, being the primary caregiver to your wife, what would be your parting message to everyone out there who is in a similar journey right now?
Yeah, like my boss in IBM told, once your loved one has a cancer, especially of this nature, uh, you are a mobile ATM to the medical world. Um, you have to maintain a right balance between treatment and the future. Do you want to spend all your money and become bankrupt like what I did, or uh, do you want to spend all the money? Uh, is up to you. Point number one. My doctor and I used to get into constant fight. I used to go ask him, can I give her chlorella? Can I give her phytocyanin? Can I give her chlorophyll, etc.? He used to fire me. He used to say, you are mad. He used to call me a mad person because he felt she's going to die. She's going to die any day. And you are mindlessly wasting money on it. You are burning money. This was his constant grip. Of course, he was concerned about me. That's why I was saying that. But he used to have a constant fight. So, point number one, you have to strike a balance between uh, spending all your savings or attending to your patient. Point number one. Point number two, uh, that sense of uncertainty is very, very, very high. I would say, please, you calm down yourself. People who are attending, please calm down. Results, nobody knows. We all have to go one day. Some people go early. Uh, you have to maintain your calm. You have to maintain your inner peace. Otherwise, you will be another trouble to the patient. Point number three, they may throw up a lot of tantrums. There are several days where I had a call midnight telling my mother-in-law crying on the phone and calling. She has huge stomach pain. Please come home. I've rushed her several times midnight to the hospitals. Uh, so you have to be physically, mentally, morally strong. Point number four and the last, you are destined to do that service. It may be your wife, your father, your mother, your children, anybody. Nobody should get this problem. But if they get it, please, please think that you're destined, you're sent by God Himself or herself to do that service to some person. This is my message for people who are in this boat, which I faced, which I went through several years back.
Yeah, that's actually helpful to others, and I'm sure they'll get to learn a lot from the journey that you just shared. I know it's difficult, but it's good that you tried your best in the journey, and I hope that you are able to you live your life happily ahead. So
You
thank
have
you
no
so
choice, Manu.
much. Yeah.
You have no
Yeah.
choice. You have two choices. One is you live a happy life, or you give your head to a running track. Right?
Yeah. Right. So, thank you so much, Ravindraji, for sharing the journey, and thank you because it will be helping so many people out there when they look at this journey and understand how the treatment should go. So, thank you once again, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. I wish all those people who are going through uh, this situation to come out highly successful. Let there be no loss of death due to COVID. Sorry, due to cancer. Thank you so much for my patient listening. I appreciate this discussion. Thank you.